Good morning, everybody. We're finding out how the police are fighting back against smugglers and drug traffickers on Britain's coastline. We've got boats, we've got dogs, and we've even got an underwater scooter. So, let's get on with catching some crooks, shall we? Here's what else is on today's programme. The couple held at knife point in their own home.
I could hear Mark. He was making sounds that I've never heard him make before.
Not that one, no, please.
He was distressed.
And we're out with the cops, waging war on Scarborough's drug dealers.
Police officers, stand still! Nobody move! Keep your hands up!
You're watching Crimewatch Roadshow. Hello and welcome to a brand new series of Crimewatch Roadshow. We'll be on your screens for the next 4 weeks, travelling the length and breadth of the UK. Today we're kicking off the series with North Yorkshire Police and Sian Lloyd's in the holiday town of Scarborough. And everything's looking pretty shipshape there, Sian.
Yes, it is, Rav. It is great to be back, and what a fantastic way to start the series here on the water. Now, thousands of tourists come to Scarborough every summer, and I'll be finding out how the police over there on dry land are cracking down on illegal drugs, and also how the team are cleaning up crime here on the water, stopping smugglers and even terrorists from using our coastline.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But first, we need your help. After one Yorkshire family's Friday evening relaxing in front of the telly ended with a terrifying armed raid.
What do you want? Where's the safe? Where's the safe?
There's just been an armed robbery at my house.
I just saw the knife and masked men and thought we were going to die.
This is Pannell, a peaceful rural village 3 miles south of Harrogate. And for the last 11 years, it's been home to Mark and Alison Murphy, their son Felix and daughter Florence.
It's just a really nice, family-friendly area to live in.
It was 9 o'clock on a Friday evening last February. With their daughter out for the evening and their son fast asleep in another part of the house, Mark and Alison were enjoying a quiet night in.
A normal night, had dinner, started relaxing, watching TV.
But outside, 3 masked men were heading towards their house, and they'd come prepared.
It sounded like an explosion to me. It was so loud, I just thought the roof was caving in.
The men had hurled a rock through their conservatory window. Just seconds later, they burst into the lounge.
Get down! Get down! What do you want?
Well, these men were all dressed in black,
Get down! Get down!
with their faces covered.
What do you want? Get down!
And I just saw one of them with a great big knife.
Let's get down! Get down!
And then the other two noticed they had crowbars. And I just thought, they're going to kill us.
2 of the men grabbed Mark, attacking him with a crowbar.
Give me that, what is that?
Whilst the third went for Alison, snatching at her jewellery.
He just pulled my earrings straight out of my ear, said, take your earrings out, and then tried pulling my ring off my finger.
Come on, do that.
He couldn't get it off.
You give me that ring.
And he kind of hesitated and looked at the other men for a second, and in that second I took the ring off and gave it to him.
What else you got?
It was a new wedding band that had just been bought for my silver wedding anniversary. And it was a little tiny diamonds all the way around the ring.
Get up!
The burglars weren't finished.
What do you want?
They dragged the couple upstairs.
All the time they were shouting, where's the safe, where's the safe, we're going to kill you, we want the jewellery, where's the safe, we want the rock.
Where's the safe? I've got one!
The thieves were heading for the couple's bedroom.
Get down, stay there!
And I just said, look, you don't need to do this, I'll show you what you want.
Come on, who's this?
And I showed him where my jewellery box was. and he fumbled with the catch and couldn't open it, so I opened the box for him. And initially he was just taking pieces of jewellery out, but then he decided to shut the lid and take the whole box.
It was then that Alison heard something truly shocking.
Yeah. Stab her.
Stab her, stab her. And I thought, I've given you all the jewellery and still we're going to get hurt.
But the burglars left Alison alone. Instead, they focused their attention on Mark.
I could hear that they were being rough with him and hitting him, and I could hear Mark. He was saying things. He wasn't saying things, he was making sounds that I've never heard him make before. He was distressed and angry. And I didn't know what they were doing to him.
One of the burglars had his sights set on one of Mark's most prized possessions. A watch he'd bought with his mother's inheritance.
Not that one, no! No, please! Please! Oh.
And he begged the men, he said, look, take what you want, but please leave me that watch. And of course, they just ignored him.
All the time, there was just one thought on Alison's mind.
I would have been terrified if they'd have looked around the house and discovered that my son was asleep in bed. I dread to think what could have happened.
Although the men were masked, Alison remembers small details.
2 of the men sounded Asian. Of course, I couldn't see any of the faces, but I could see one of them, his eyes and his skin colour around his eyes. And the 3rd man with the knife was white. I could see his skin and his pale blue-grey eyes.
Come on! Go!
Finally, the men threw their haul into 2 black plastic bin liners before helping themselves to the cash in Alison's handbag.
It was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
The whole incident had taken just 6 minutes.
It's emergency. 3 masked men have broken in with knives and stolen our jewellery and threatened to beat my husband up.
These men are going to do this again somewhere else. If they're not caught, they're going to do it again to somebody else. And somebody else might not be as lucky as us. Somebody is going to get really hurt.
Well, with me now is DC Vincent Formosa, who's investigating this case. A terrifying armed robbery, this one. Do you think Alison and her family were deliberately targeted?
Well, that's right. On the 6th of February, which is when it happened, the indications are that prior to that, there's been a few occasions where they've obviously been watched because of what the offenders have said and done during the actual incident itself.
They were wearing balaclavas during this attack, but do you have any details about them?
Well, it's 3 men, 2 Asian and 1 white man, all wearing dark clothing. The white man is a little bit more nervous in his behaviour in comparison to the other 2.
A lot of jewellery was taken. We saw in the film some of it, a great sentimental value. Take us through some of these items, because they're very distinctive, aren't they?
Well, that's right, they are, and that's hopefully where we're going to get some information. There's a heart-shaped star-shaped earrings, heart-shaped pendant. There's a wedding ring which was just wrenched off her fingers, and there's also a watch of great sentimental value to Mark as well.
So really you want people to have had a look at that jewellery and see if they recognise any of it. Now, there's a car also that you're interested in.
Yes, there was a silver car seen on a number of occasions before the incident actually happened, pointed at the property, parked for an extended period of time, and we would really ask people to come forward with any information about a silver car that they've seen in the area.
OK, thank you very much. Of course, the family have been left very upset by this attack. If you can help, please contact us. The numbers are on your screen.
Right, time now for our first CCTV roundup of crooks caught on camera. Watch carefully.
A bank in the West Midlands in January this year. This customer looks like a respectable gent, but appearances can be deceiving. Police believe he's using someone else's bank card. It's thought the card, along with others, went missing from a Surrey hotel. He types in the PIN and withdraws 1,800 quid. Officers suspect this man used stolen cards in 7 banks and several shops across the West Midlands, as well as a betting website. In total, it's reckoned he obtained more than £33,000 worth of cash and goods using the cards. Let's have a name for this dandy fraudster. It's 9 at night in South Mimms, Hertfordshire, and this garage assistant is having his grub. But he loses his appetite when he sees 3 masked men coming through the door. One's got a metal pole and he wants money, all of it, and pronto. Together they help themselves to £300 from the till and the staff room. With a final warning to the cashier, the gang hightail it out of there. Did you see them leg it down the alleyway into nearby Brookside and Hepburn Court? And get this, all 3 wore their trousers tucked into their socks. Very stylish. Let's have some names for this trendy trio. Holy smoke! This brazen burglar has no qualms about nicking from a Bristol church. And this is what he's after. The donation box below the prayer candles. How wicked is that? He uses a specially adapted tool to pop the lid off the donation tin and grab the change inside. It's small beans, but enough to lure him back a month later. This time he jemmies a candle rack by the door. Then goes back to the other one and, using that special tool of his, helps himself to more money. What we need is some divine intervention. You know what to do.
Recognise any of that lot? If you do, make sure you pick up the phone. You can call us about any of today's cases on 08000 468 999. Calls are free from most landlines, but remember, some network and mobile operators will charge. Or you can text us on 63399. Text CW, space, and then your message. Text will be charged at your standard message rate. And you can also email us, the address cwr@bbc.co.uk. Now, let's see what Sian's up to.
Well, Rav, all this week, Scarborough and other coastal towns here in North Yorkshire are launching a week to combat coastal crime. It's part of a national operation called Operation Kraken. David Norris from the National Crime Agency, you're part of it, and, well, you've brought this very exciting-looking piece of kit. What is it?
Absolutely. This is an underwater vehicle that was seized from a crime group who were diving with it in wetsuits and everything to enable them to take large quantities of Class A drugs from vessels. It was like a scene from a James Bond movie.
Well, it does look like something from a film, doesn't it? I mean, so somebody would have been actually lying on this, would they, in their full kit to get to the bottom of that hull?
Yes, indeed. The divers would be laid across it, operating it at quite high speeds to get underwater, to get to the rudder housing, to actually cut the drugs consignment from the vessels.
So the operation was a very important one, wasn't it? What was your role in it?
It was a very important operation. We seized 108 kilos of cocaine, Class A drugs, worth millions and millions of pounds on the street. And
not really, though, an area that you would expect something like this. It's a quiet coast, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes, and the crime group were operating from the Cleethorpes area, and this is why we say to people, please look out for suspicious activity in your area.
Thank you very much. Well, this is a very fascinating bit of kit, but I want to take you inside this boat now, because this is the Guardian, and it's used by the police to carry out searches, but it's actually owned and organised by your operation, isn't it, David? Now, let's really get stuck into this kit and take a look at what you've got here, because it looks really interesting.
We have a wide range of very sophisticated kit here that we use for the protection and conservation of the marine environment. We have high-definition cameras.
Oh, let's go and have a look at that then, shall we? We can get a little bit closer down to it to have a look at this camera here. So what can we see?
Well, this is quite a...
I'll just bring you round that way. There we are. So we can see the screen.
This is a very sophisticated piece of kit. It's high-definition camera, and we're focusing in here on a lobster pot, which is out in the bay. And this is part of the attentions today, this particular pot.
So you use it for conservation as well. There's a lot of radar on board, isn't there?
Indeed, we use we have very sophisticated radar equipment that we use for plotting and monitoring vessel movements, and again, that information is very valuable to other agencies.
Dave, thanks very much for taking us through that. It's been fascinating to see on board here. Come back to us later, Rav, because it's going to be a full-scale search training operation taking place out there in the harbour.
Certainly will. Thank you, Sian. Still to come on today's programme. The law might be changing on legal highs, But will that be enough to stop young people using them, with sometimes terrifying effect?
We had a girl who took several hours to wake up. We've no idea what had happened to her. And she didn't. She was found on the cliff edge.
And I'll be finding out about fingerprints on feathers, an amazing scientific breakthrough that could help track down wildlife thieves. Before that, though, thousands of families choose Scarborough for their holidays. But in recent years, parts of the resort town have been blighted by drugs. We've been following the police as they fight to wipe out the dealers.
We have a Section 8 warrant, so we'll be going straight in.
For nearly 2 years, Operation Impact's been cleaning up Scarborough, tackling the dealers selling Class A drugs like heroin and cocaine on the streets.
Scarborough's a beautiful coastal resort. People have been coming out on holiday for years, and towns can get blighted by negative influences. And actually, it's not right that there's drug dealing going on the streets and people's addresses, and people making a lot of money from it.
Today's raids mark a ramping up of the operation.
Over the last few months, we've had great success taking out street dealers. And at the same time as well, as we've been looking at the street dealers, we've had complex and detailed investigations as to where does that supply of drugs come from. And today, we have teams going out, as we speak, making arrests, bringing people into custody who are suppliers of bulk quantities of powdered drugs.
Operation Impact was launched after the murder of Jonathan Binns. He'd become addicted to the heroin easily available on Scarborough's streets.
He was able to hold down a job, he was able to pay his bills, make his way. He lived in a really nice house that he shared with a work colleague who he got on extremely well with. And he wasn't how you'd picture a drug user to be.
But in August 2013, Jonathan was attacked by a gang intent on stealing the £30 worth of heroin he'd just bought.
This is what drugs do to people. They were so desperate, they didn't know what Jonathan had on him, but whatever it might be, even if it's only a slither or whatever it was, they were going to get it.
Today's operation has 3 suspected dealers in its sights. Officers split into small teams so they can hit all the addresses at once, making sure word doesn't spread.
Please! Police officer, stand still! Nobody move! Keep your hands up! Swan in here.
Within seconds, our first suspect is in cuffs.
You're under arrest for supplying Class A controlled substances between January and February this year.
And after a search of the property, Sergeant Neil Canning finds this man's not just involved with Class A drugs.
Upon entering the address, we found the subject that we were looking for. He has been arrested for being concerned in the supply of Class A controlled drugs. We've also got several what look like cannabis plants in his bedroom, so he's also been arrested for cultivation of cannabis.
So this drug dealer is taken into custody. Meanwhile, just down the road, the other police van goes after our second suspect.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Go on, in.
There's no one at home. But a third team track him down at work and take him into custody. Finally, a couple of miles away, officers are already giving house number 3 a thorough search. And the nose of Billy the Spaniel's put to work again. Then, just outside a child's bedroom, a cupboard full of cannabis plants is found. And there's more for the evidence room. Officers seize everything and bag it up. So that's a third result for officers today, as their final suspect is arrested and driven away. Today's haul adds to Operation Impact's impressive figures. that have seen more than 125 people charged with drug offences and over £70,000 in cash recovered.
I say to people, they need to be looking over the shoulders, they need to be worrying whose door are we going to go through next. We will search addresses, we will take drugs off them, we'll take the cash off them, we'll take their assets off them. This is a big day.
John Gabriel Page pleaded guilty to the supply of cocaine and MDMA and the possession and production of cannabis. The other two men were arrested on suspicion of supplying cocaine. It's almost 2 years since Jonathan was murdered by other drug users. Julie hopes today's arrests will stop others dying needlessly.
If they can just prevent one person from having access to them and then becoming addicted, then it's worth every effort in my view, because it just ruins people's lives.
Well, from raids on dry land to raids on the sea now, because I've come on board the Regal Lady, because this is where North Yorkshire Police are going to be testing their techniques for cracking down on crime on the water. This is Pete Wakefield from the Special Branch. Morning to you. What's happening today?
Well, today, Sian, we're engaging in an exercise on a vessel. It's a search exercise. We've got members of North Yorkshire Police, we've got members of UK Border Force, and most importantly, we've got Billy, our drugs dog, taking part as well. So it's a scenario based on drugs and potential firearms placed and hidden in various locations on this vessel.
So are they ready to go? Are you going to give
They
command?
are indeed. We're going to start now. So if the team could commence the search, please. We start off with the dog, and the dog is generally sent in first on these type of scenarios, and in reality as well. And the dog will give an indication when it finds a scent of a drug. And I'll just cut short there because we've already got an indication just over here.
Good boy.
There we go. So the dog's indicating by his barrel. I'll get one of the officers just to recover whatever is hidden under there. And it is an exercise, this, but, you know, it's as real as we can make it.
Yeah.
So here we've got a handgun, but the reason the dog's picked the handgun, it's not a firearms dog, this. We do have firearms trained dogs, it's a drugs dog, but inside this this weapon there will be somewhere in there some drugs, a small amount of drugs hidden within, which again is a common method used.
So that's why Billy was able to find that. And already another one's been brought over. So where did we find that?
That's right. Well, I believe this was found on the roof, because I think it's important to point out that on a vessel such as this, or even a small vessel, there are so many places you can hide items. You've got wooden panels here, you've got seats, the cushions, the floor, you know, so many places. To search a vessel like this would take hours, even with a large amount of staff, to do it in its entirety.
And Lynn, I want to bring you in, because Billy's been really busy there already, doing fantastic stuff. I mean, he's really highly trained, isn't he? But has he been doing it on a boat before? Because obviously you've got to go everywhere, haven't you, looking for drugs?
This is our maiden voyage, but we train in lots of different environments, in lots of different places. But Billy, basically, whenever he identifies a scent that he's been trained to find, he will indicate, as you saw, he makes a little dance. Lots of dogs indicate in different ways. Once he's indicated, it's a game to him, and he wants his reward, and the reward is his ball, and he's now waiting for Pete or yourself to play with him. Do feel free.
He's done a fantastic job. I'd love to play with him, but before I do that, let me ask you about the other boats that you sometimes look out for, because fishing boats are relevant as well, aren't they?
They are indeed. I mean, it's any type of craft, whether it's a rib, a yacht, pleasure craft, but fishing boats in particular go out in all weathers. They have a good reason for being out at sea. And current intelligence and recent operations have involved fishing vessels, which have got many, many places to hide items.
Absolutely great work so far, Pete. Thanks very much. Come back to us later. Have they found guns so far? But who knows what else they'll turn up?
Thanks, Sean. Will do. Now it's time to have a look at the first wanted faces of the series. Police forces around the country are asking for your help to find these men. And first up this year is 26-year-old Anthony Charles Eskins. Police in Cheshire are looking for him after he failed to turn up at court, where he was found guilty of a nasty assault on a 33-year-old woman. He has burn scars on his hands and arms and several tattoos, including R.I.P. John on his right arm. Eskins has links to West Yorkshire, where he may have been working as a car mechanic, as well as Runcorn in Cheshire and North Wales. And how about this man? This is Stanley Brian Wilkinson. He was jailed for more than 7 years for drug dealing, but when he was released on licence in 2014, he failed to stick to his conditions and is now wanted back in prison. Wilkinson has connections to Merseyside and might have recently visited Wrexham, but where is he now? Next, police in the West Midlands need your help to find this man, Saqib Iqbal. He's wanted for questioning after a fraud in which the victim lost $2.5 grand. Iqbal sometimes wears glasses and has links across Birmingham. And finally, for today, can you help Sussex police track down Simon Peter Knight? They want to talk to him after a series of house burglaries across the southeast, including 5 in the same village. He often travels by train and dresses smartly when he's out and about, as you can see from these recent CCTV images. Well, did you spot any familiar faces there? If so, you know what to do. Call us on 08000 468 999 or text on 63399. Text CW space and then your message, and that space is really important. If you don't put it in, your message won't get through to us. You can email us too, of course, or if you'd rather stay anonymous, give Crime Stoppers a call on 0800 555 111. Next, we need your help to find the men behind a daring daytime raid on a Harrogate jewellers.
Former soldier Kenny Fuller and his wife Julie settled in Harrogate for the quiet life.
It's a fantastic town. It's an old spa town. A lot of history, a lot of things to see there. Really good.
But for Kenny and Julie, a chance trip into town one Monday morning last March put them in the wrong place at the wrong time. The couple called into a shop in the town centre, Montpellier Antiques.
The reason I went to Harrogate that day was for a job interview. So I had the job interview in the morning.
I have a set of cufflinks.
And then went down to Montpellier Antiques to sell some cufflinks that he said he'd buy off me a couple of weeks before.
About £80. Okay, let me get some people.
The owner of the shop was a really, really nice guy. A good 20 years older than me. And the other two were probably around about the same age. In their 70s, probably early 80s.
Happy with the price, Kenny handed over the cufflinks.
I then had a form on the desk by the edge of the shop, writing out my name and some details, when Julie shouted something.
They're trying to get in. I just looked up and they're just looking at me.
At the door, there was some commotion. And I saw men with balaclavas at the door, one with a sledgehammer.
They just all came up behind each other and just concertinaed back.
As the intruders pushed their way in, Kenny and the 3 shop assistants tried desperately to keep the masked men at bay.
It was just shock and horror, really.
But what I didn't realise is that one of these men with the balaclavas had got in. And he came running at all of us with an axe in his hand, swinging the axe around.
Get back! Get down! OK, get back, boys, get back.
I grabbed Julie, pushed her into the corner. We got down behind the desk.
Within seconds, the 3 other men had burst into the shop.
Get down! Get down! Down on the floor!
And forced the shop assistants to lie down.
I just remember seeing the one laid on the floor next to Julie, who was very frightened.
It seemed like it wasn't happening to us. It was very frightening.
The men set about smashing the glass cabinets.
Glass was flying everywhere.
But the men weren't just after the jewellery on display.
Now, give us your watch! OK.
They attempted to get the watch off one of the shopkeepers in front of us.
Hurry up! Give us your watch!
He bent over the top of us and he's saying, "Give us your watch, give us your watch," and he's trying to get it undone, but that catch wouldn't come undone.
Hurry up!
Then, just minutes after they'd broken in, the men piled into their getaway car as a passerby called the police.
Police emergency.
Quickly, there's an armed robbery happening at Montpellier Antiques.
Just grab the vehicle, please.
With a black Lexus. I couldn't get the plate. I've taken photographs. Please, hurry.
It's OK, we're getting someone out there, OK.
It went quiet, really quiet.
OK, they've gone.
So we all got up at the same time, all 5 of us in the shop.
You OK, guys?
And looked, and it was just a scene of utter devastation. Within a few seconds, they managed to smash the shop and rob half of the watches, or most of the watches, out the window.
You OK?
But the elderly shop assistants were in a bad way.
It's a big thing to be in the middle of a shop raid like that.
One of them was very pale. The other one was very, very red, flushed. But the owner himself seemed to be calm, but I think it was more anger than anything. The fact that he'd been targeted, he was a bit upset by that. but the other two definitely needed help.
I think I'll be all right. Bit of a...
One of the shop workers had severe chest pains and spent a week in hospital. Police responded quickly and investigated the crime scene.
When the forensic team arrived at the shop, they saw that the sledgehammer which the men had arrived with was still located within the shop, and that was one of the items that we recovered and used for forensic testing. And from that sledgehammer, we found a forensic DNA result.
One man was arrested and convicted, but police are still searching for 4 other men, including the getaway driver.
If it's happened again, you don't know, things could have been a lot worse.
Well, with me now is DI Nicola Holden. And Nicola, we saw the men escaping into that getaway car at the end of the film there. Let's just recap on what you know.
Just to remind people, the robbery occurred on Monday the 16th of March, about 11 a.m. in the town centre of Harrogate, and it was 5 men in a black Lexus.
So you know they got into that car. What details do you have of the escape route?
The escape route was in the black Lexus. Now, we know this black Lexus was stolen from the Prestwich area in about December last year. Now, the vehicle went off onto Glebe Avenue in Harrogate with junction of St Mary's Walk. Now, we know the men there got into a white Renault Kangoo, which then made off in the Harrogate area to Churchwell Court, where the vehicle was abandoned again.
And your investigations have led to the conviction of 1 man, though?
That's correct, yes. Ryan Stanley was arrested as a result of DNA evidence located on the sledgehammer. Now, that was used in the robbery, and he was arrested and pleaded guilty at court where he got a 12-year sentence.
But you are looking for others, because we saw in the film there how they burst in through the door. Tell us about these men that you're looking for.
The 4 of the men, the accomplices of Stanley, obviously we're looking to trace them. They're obviously wearing dark clothing. One was in a light grey tracksuit with dark lines down the side. Now we're trying to identify who they were. So they're connected with Stanley, who committed that robbery on that day.
OK, great. And that's what you want the public's help for.
We certainly do, please.
And if you can help, please get in touch.
Well, plenty of bird life on the coast where Shan is today, but you may not know that rarer species can be valuable targets for criminals. Unfortunately, tracking down those responsible is particularly tricky, or at least it was, until Dennis Gentles and Helen McMorris came up with a new technique which could hopefully make all the difference. Good morning to you both. Sounds very exciting. Helen, if you can tell me more about how this technique can help.
Wildlife crime is a big issue across the whole of the UK, and in particular the persecution of birds of prey. Further research in the past has looked into rhino horn, snake skin, deer antlers for fingerprints, but feathers has been something that hasn't been looked at before. We've now been able to find a technique that we can prove there's been human contact with a bird if it's been found abandoned on the hill, poisoned or illegally trapped, when the birds are supposed to stay in the air. And it's not a thrill for anybody to see an eagle flying high.
So Dennis, in my time in the police, I never took a fingerprint from a feather. I'll put my hands up to that. How do you do it?
How do we do it? Well, the surface of off the feather is very smooth. It's held together. It's the individual barbs, and they're held together with barbules. And we can use this fluorescent powder because, as you can see, we've gone from everything from white to almost completely black.
So this greyish powder here is the normal stuff that a crime scene investigator would use.
Yes.
Now, that wouldn't necessarily work so well on a feather.
It doesn't work too well. Because we can't get an area of contrast. But if we use this and this magnetic applicator...
It looks like a brush there, but all that is just actually stuck to the applicator there.
So all we're going to do is brush that over the surface, off the print, off the feather, and we will
while you're gently doing that, Helen, why is this so important to be able to identify who's been killing or tampering, stealing with these birds?
The link between the wildlife crime and the person responsible is often very difficult to prove because the birds just are left abandoned on the hill, and it's by sheer chance if they're found. So being able to prove there has been human contact gives us the chance of a potential DNA recovery in the future to find the person responsible. OK, now Dennis, just while you've finished doing that, at the moment, I'll be honest, I can't see a great deal. So what needs to be done now in order to actually see that print?
Well, we need to excite this chemical.
OK.
And we do that by fluorescence. We use these very special lights.
Now, that's a very strong light, isn't it? So I'm not going to stare directly at it. We've got some goggles here. Now, these are tinted. They're going to enable me to see that. But, Helen, you have a camera there that's going to enable everyone at home to see what we are seeing as well.
It's got the same filter on the lens.
OK, so if I have a look through this now with these goggles on, and straight away I can see that. If we tilt that towards the camera there, Dennis, that is so clear. We can see those very, very clear finger marks there. I think you can see that at home. That's fascinating. Really is much clearer than I thought. So, endless possibilities. If we put the lights back up, endless possibilities as to how this could help crime, wildlife crime.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very
Fascinating stuff. And tomorrow, we're going to be finding out much more about the work being done by police to stop the persecution of wild birds. Sean.
Well, earlier we showed you how drugs are being clamped down on by police here in Scarborough. Now plans have just been announced to ban the supply of so-called legal highs. And for the police and concerned families in this town, it's a move that can't come soon enough.
In this seaside town, it's easy for adults to buy legal highs. But there's a worrying trend. Children are getting their hands on them too. Soon anyone found selling them could face 7 years in jail. And for desperate parents, it's the news they've been waiting for.
Last summer we were seeing crowds and crowds of children at this park openly taking legal highs. Ambulances were coming, they were picking up kids that would collapse on the floor, foaming at the mouth after smoking legal highs, after taking legal highs, the powders. Young kids don't understand how serious legal highs are, and they think because they sell them openly in shops and they're quite easy to obtain, like a packet of cigarettes, they must be all right to take, but they're not all right to take. And I think after listening to parents, they are actually more dangerous than illegal drugs.
For the last year, Alexa has regularly looked out for local children at risk.
Empty packets are sometimes left around this area, they don't pick them up.
Police have been so concerned they've joined her and launched their own targeted patrols of Scarborough's parks and streets.
Children as young as 10 and 11, so primary school age, are taking them. We're hearing that particularly teenage groups taking them on an evening, for example, in some of the local parks.
These brightly coloured packets are cheap, just £10 a time. And here in Scarborough, adults are regularly seen selling them onto children, but they're far from harmless.
I thought I was like in hell for like 10 minutes and it wore off. But it wasn't a nice feeling. It was like being paralysed.
David ended up in prison after taking a cocktail of illegal drugs and legal highs. He agrees children need to be protected.
I ended up going on a mad rampage with a sword and then ended up having a fight with the police. My head was that messed up on drugs. I was just going crazy and I didn't care what happened. I didn't care about consequences. But it makes you steal off family. I was stealing off family sometimes. And then after going to jail, that sorted it all out. That stopped drugs altogether.
More than 171 deaths have been linked to legal highs in Britain. And at Scarborough Hospital, they're seeing around 20 patients a month, many of whom are under 18, suffering the mental and physical effects.
Twitchy, agitated, staring eyes, paranoid. We had a chap who'd been found floating in a large lake. Luckily, he was floating face up. He could have been floating face down. He was very cold and very wet, and that didn't seem to wake him up. We had a girl who took several hours to wake up and was in a filthy, disgusting state. And we've no idea what had happened to her. And she didn't. She was found on the cliff edge.
And because no one knows what goes into these drugs, doctors admit it's incredibly difficult to treat people.
We don't know how long it lasts in the system because nobody's studying that. And so we're practicing on the patient.
Legal highs could be outlawed completely by the end of the year. How effective the ban will be won't be known for some time.
It's frightening for me because who's to say my son won't try legal highs? As much as I try as a parent to warn him against legal highs doesn't mean that he's not going to try them. And that thought alone worries me every single day.
Some shocking stories there. Right now, I'm back on board the Regal Lady with Pete Wakefield, and we're having a look at the haul that you've got so far from your training exercise.
That's right,
Not bad.
It's a good one indeed, yes. We've got a selection of firearms here and some drugs that were recovered from the vessel just a short time ago.
So that's what you found, but just for people at home now, I guess these are real weapons that you found during training exercises and operations in the past?
They are. They're deactivated weapons, but they are real, and we use them for training exercises within the police for certain scenarios, and the drugs are real as well. The dog indicates on the real scent. So yeah, that's what we've recovered there, and obviously one more item to look
OK,
at.
let's go and have a look then. So there's something else that the officers over here are looking at. So what have they found? Because obviously earlier, when we were on board the boat, we saw the underwater camera with a lobster pot. So what have these guys found?
OK, well, we saw the lobster pot, so we're going to recover that now, guys. If we could just pull that up from the seabed, and obviously we'll bring that aboard to a safe environment, and we'll open it up and see what was actually inside, because it certainly looked unusual, to say the least, when we saw it earlier.
So how realistic would that be? Because obviously we think about smuggling as something that perhaps went on hundreds of years ago, particularly on the coast here, but is it a modern-day issue?
Smuggling's taken place for hundreds of years, yeah, and it's just the commodities have changed, technology's advanced, and it still goes on. And as we can see here...
take a look at it then.
Certainly not a lobster that's been caught in there. I'll just open this case.
So that could be a hiding place.
And again, it is training, but it is a method that is used, and here... we can see quite clearly we've got what appears to be a bundle of £20 notes.
You found a lot today, haven't you, with the guns,
today,
drugs and cash. Well, let's ask you a little bit about how the public can help you with this, because I know you've got a vast area to cover, and also that includes, 12 miles out to sea. You need their help, don't you?
It does. We cover international waters 12 miles out from the coastline. Project Kraken is a national vigilance campaign, and its aim is to create a hostile environment to make it hard for terrorists and members of serious organised crime groups. We rely on eyes and ears, and those eyes and ears are members of the public, local community, people that live and work here, to report things that are suspicious and stand out.
And what can they do then? What should they be looking for?
For example, just recently, in the last few weeks, we've had headlamps flashing on cliff tops at night, which could be navigation aids for small craft. We've had drag marks in the sand. We've had small boats out in the shipping lanes, possibly exchanging or picking up things like lobster pots, which can be left there in situ. So there's a variety of methods that can be used, very, very similar to the old smuggling days, and it's very real today, still taking place.
Well, thank you for taking us through it today. It's been absolutely fascinating to see you in action. I think you'll agree, Rav, it's not a bad morning's work here.
Absolutely. That's just about it for today, though. If you can help catch any of the crooks we've featured, please do get in touch. And just so you know, your calls really do make a difference. Last year, your information led to 46 arrests across 17 force areas for crimes including robbery, rape, kidnap and murder. A fantastic result, but I reckon we can do even better this year. Sian, tell us, where are you going to be tomorrow?
Well, we're going to be leaving the seaside here in Scarborough, Rav, and heading to the North Yorkshire moors. And that's because that part of the country has the highest rate of wildlife crime in the country. So I'm going to be at a bird of prey centre, finding out why criminals are targeting these beautiful creatures, and some of them in a very callous and horrific way. The police, of course, are cracking down on them, so I'm going to be finding out what they can do to catch these culprits. It really is a beautiful part of the world, so join me then.
Certainly will. Thank you, Sian. Remember, you can take another look at today's CCTV and Wanted Faces on the Crimewatch Roadshow website. And we're going to leave you with another look at those faces right now, because somebody out there knows where these people are. If you do, call us. Thanks for watching. Until tomorrow, take care.